very much for being here today. We're going to go ahead and get started. Here in Pasadena ISD, we are honored to have Senator John Cornyn here with us today talking about school safety and the Bipartisan Safer Schools Act. We have been blessed here in Pasadena ISD to benefit from some grant funding that has helped keep our students and our staff safe here in Pasadena. And we know other school districts who are represented here today, A-Leaf, Spring Branch, Katy, as well as University of Houston Clear Lake and University of Houston Victoria. We're here to just talk with Senator Cornyn about the benefits of those dollars and how the federal grants and his work has really helped us. So we're honored to have him here today to talk about the work that he's doing, and we just want to thank him on behalf of our students, our staff, and our parents and community. Thank you, Senator Cornyn.
Well, thank you, Dr. Powell, and this is a sad day because it's a one-year anniversary of the terrible shooting at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. And after that event, like after similar events, people say, do something. Somebody's got to do something. And there's not a lot of specificity, not a lot of detail that goes along with that, but they do expect their elected leaders to actually respond and to try to address their concerns. And so foremost among those concerns is my child going to be safe in school? No parent should have to worry about the safety and security of their child in school, and no child should have to come to school being afraid, is something going to happen to me while I'm here? And I would want to congratulate Dr. Powell and all of these school districts represented and people training the next generation of counselors, psychologists, and others for the great work that they're doing. Being a teacher is a whole lot more complicated these days than it used to be, because schools end up being sort of the safety net for so many different things, including mental health challenges, among others. So I'm glad we were able to do something that's proven to be useful. Obviously, this bill passed last year was signed into law. It's going to take a while to create that pipeline that we heard for the people to provide the services. But like so many other areas, you can't turn it on by the flip of a switch. It's going to take some time. But I'm glad to hear that some of what we've done is being put to good use, and people are hopeful that we will be able to provide that reassurance to parents that their child is safe, and to provide that reassurance to these children that they're going to be safe, because we want them to learn. We're depending on them to be the next generation of leaders in Houston, in Texas, and for this country. So with that, let me pause. I'm happy to answer or dodge a few questions.
Senator, a couple of compelling facts I heard today. Well, it was a really good roundtable. We go to a lot of them. 20% of kids have diagnosable mental health issues, and one school psychologist for every 2,600 students. Are those the kind of numbers you can take back to the Senate, to Congress, to try to get even more? I mean, that's 1 in 5 kids.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking numbers. And I guess we are all acutely aware of the challenge that the isolation associated with COVID created. Kids weren't able to come to school and be around their friends and participate in extracurricular activities. Parents were stressed out. So things are already challenging enough as a result of COVID. They had learning deficits because not everybody had access to broadband or a laptop to pursue their education. So I think we're all feeling the acute need for more mental health professionals, more services. That's why part of the money that you heard that is subject to these grants is to help train the trainer and to train more people to be able to provide those services. It's probably not likely that we're going to have enough professionals, people with a number of initials after their name, PhDs and things like that, but we can train people to provide more access to services. Teachers' aides, we heard in particular, seems like a logical way to do that. But we'll continue to stay in discussion with the folks we've been here with today and see if there are other things we need to do. But as I said, we made a huge investment in community-based mental health care and these school grants. This is a substantial amount of money. It's going to take a while to get it implemented, but we'll stay in touch to figure out what else and what it's appropriate for the federal government to do. While the state legislature, of course, is is primarily responsible, but we're there to help too.
Senator, as you know, many of the parents of Uvalde victims say very little has changed in the 1 year since they lost their children, in particular at the state level. What is your message to those parents who feel not much has changed since they lost their children and not much has changed to prevent this from happening again?
Well, first of all, our hearts go out to those who lost a family member in those terrible shootings. We had a similar event after Sutherland Springs. We talked about Santa Fe, its 5-year anniversary. Then Uvalde, and now Allen, Texas. It seems like these are happening way too often. So there's a lot of different ways to try to address it. Probably nothing that will provide comfort to people who've actually lost a child or a loved one. But you've seen some of that talked about here, things to make it harder for people to get into a campus. I don't know how much security you can provide that will protect a campus when somebody leaves the back door unlocked and open. But we need to learn from that and try to do better next time. And the communication systems, the technology, from the standpoint of firearms and their availability, one of the things that we did is provide for an enhanced background check for 18 to 21-year-olds. Because what happened in Salvador Ramos in Uvalde, he turned 18 and it's as if he was born yesterday. We didn't look back at juvenile records, which would have provided a lot of information showing that he was in trouble and unfortunately was likely to be a danger to himself and others. So that has already proven borne fruit. The FBI has been able to stop 160 different transactions by taking a look at those juvenile records. The Texas Senate unanimously passed a bill to give us look back to 16-year-olds and above, their mental health commitments and the like, and the House passed that overwhelmingly too. So we're trying to learn from each of these tragedies and do better because our ultimate goal is to try to save lives.
You know how difficult, you of all people know how difficult it was to get this passed. Anytime you mention guns at the federal level, it can be tricky.
I noticed that.
So when you hear now that in Congress, members of your own party on the House side interested in introducing efforts to repeal this very act, what is your message to members of your own party and these efforts to repeal what you've worked so hard on the other side of the aisle to get this done? Well,
they need to go to their local school districts. They need to talk to their parents, and they need to ask them, do you think you don't need this technology? You don't need this workforce? You don't need this resource? I bet they would hear what I heard here today, which is we desperately need all of the above in order to keep our kids safe. So I think, like so many things, it's hard to have a reasonable conversation these days because people sort of get triggered over different words, and guns happen to be one of those things that tends to trigger strong emotions. I'm a strong believer in the Second Amendment. I own a number of firearms myself. I'm a law-abiding citizen, and I'm not going to be a threat to public safety. I don't think law-abiding citizens are. But I do think that people with mental health, documented mental health problems, and people with criminal records, and other people that are disqualified under existing law, like people dishonorably discharged from the military, people who have a drug problem, those are people who should be excluded from being able to purchase a firearm by the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, and that's where we've tried to focus, and I believe in the process we've saved lives.
Senator, it seems like the funds granted to these various entities allowed them to continue these programs for 5 years. How do we make sure this funding stays in place so that these programs don't dry up due to budget issue talks or raising the debt ceiling, and how do we keep them around?
Well, there's nothing permanent when it comes to the government, whether it's local, state, or federal government. Hopefully, we'll learn some things which will cause us to take a look back and see, what worked and what didn't work. I don't believe that everything that we try to do to address this problem is necessarily going to be equally successful, but we'll learn from that. And obviously, the next Congress, the next person that has my job, can revisit that at that time. But part of the problem is maintaining our vigilance because there are always so many other things that seem to pop to the top of everybody's outrage list. And we need to remember this, particularly on a day where we are grieving still with the families who lost loved ones in Uvalde. But it's an appropriate time to talk about the need and what the response has been, and to be recommitted to continue to stay in the fight.
Last question.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Absolutely.
Thanks again. See ya.
We're going to take a couple of photographs. I want to see, we're going to get the senator with the various ISDs.